Well, it's a good day to be alive. I know there's a lot of people struggling with the way the weather's been and all the different varieties of things passing through viral or bacterial or whichever way it's going to come at you. And it seems to be that there's a lot of people who are working in the elderly section that 65 and older that are really challenged with a lot of these things that are happening in the change of our products, food, air qualities, all the various things that deal with taking into our system, whether it be through the air or through the kitchen table or a restaurant. I want to say something about my health. I want to give thanks to all of you who have been praying for me. It's been a long battle. I mean, at least 6 weeks. I've been really, really down. I mean, it's been hard to pull myself up. But I didn't do it without the prayers. I didn't do it without Jesus. You know that. And even though I like to pray, and I pray a lot, when you're down and you're out and you're not even cognitive mentally, because whatever you're battling has got into your mind, it makes it hard to pray. So when you have people that are sustaining you in prayer, it can carry you through those real, real dangerous times. And I was there in that dangerous area. And I really believe within all of my heart that your prayers made all the difference, that made the difference in bringing me here even today. Today, I would say at least 50% better than I was last week. And my voice might not sound like it, but all the other parts of my body are functioning a lot more cognitively. And I know that sometimes it's difficult to remember things as it is at 74 or even at 54. But the thing is that if you have Jesus, he'll bring back to remembrance those things you really, really need to know. I found that the more I talk and I start messing up and forgetting things that I'm talking about, that it's a way for me to be able to take pause and realize maybe what I'm talking about isn't that interesting. Maybe it's not needed to be said. And I'm not talking about ministering so much, even though that might even have fallen in the category a few times. But I'm talking about just talking to a friend, just talking to somebody on the streets, talking to the cashier at the register. You know, all these things that we find sometimes important are just us making noise. And I understand that. But I like to let people rattle on because they say things sometimes that they give me humor. It gives me actually a way to be able to put something to get together in a sermon that I would not have thought of otherwise. And talking about sermons, I find something that was interesting that I think all of you would too, if you just put a pen to it. Have you ever thought about just trying to sit down and make some spiritual quotation that would be something that would stick? You know, there's a lot of things that people say that have become cliches, but they've also been mile markers in times of era that in our past that take us back into those memories, like groovy or raunchy, or, you know, a lot of things that we say take us back into a different period of time. Well, there also are those things that we can say in sentences that bring forth things that are carried over an area of time that are not measured, unmeasurable quotations, because they fit man no matter what. It's like Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun. They'll fit all the time, year round, no matter what year it is. And I pulled some of these up today. I want to just share with you because I want you to know what I'm doing here as of recent. Over the years, I've pulled up a lot of different sayings that people have had, and I wanted to be able to share them with others because they meant a lot to me. But then it made me start thinking, well, what if maybe I could do that? Maybe I could have some influence in that area. So last week I put two different comments, I call them spiritual quotations, that gave me some understanding of being able to say something without saying too much. And this first one of two that I sent out last week, November 30th, 2025, God takes the personal pains endured in this life of a prophet and intuitively directs their thoughts toward hurting hearts. Using the prophet's painful battles of the past, God creates a prophetic keyboard or keyword, prophetic keyword, unlocking the hearts of the hurting by speaking spiritual freedoms into their lives. Now that's a quotation I came up with. You can probably tell because it could be probably written a lot of different ways. In fact, I ran it through AI, and everything they came up with took all of the personality out of it, took all of the character out of it. I mean, it might have made it read better or whatever, but it still didn't say what I wanted to say. It actually took it away. And that kind of concerned me. The second one I put up was a little bit easier to read. With each day, it becomes easier, and the freedom you experience through his prophetic utterance will speak more to you than mere human words. I think you'll find that to be understood whenever you hear the voice of God. And it's not really even, it's the whisper. It's not even a word as normal speaking. The volume's way down, but the impact is way up, off the charts at times. It'll leave an indelible mark within your soul that'll never leave you. Now I'm going to go back up to that first one again. The personal pains endured in the life of a prophet. I really truly believe that a lot of things that I've gone through, hurts, pains, sufferings, have all had purpose in it for me to be able to be an intercessor for others. For when you're interceding for others, whether it be in prayer or otherwise, you're basically doing on the connotation that you are finding out things about a person without that person knowing, or you knowing even that much about the person. You can be praying about somebody and all of a sudden come back with something and say, well, I feel like if you do this, this will help that situation. Now, I actually had that happen in this last 6 weeks of battles. I had one or two people who wrote and mentioned something about taking something that would help me in part of the problem I'm having, and they didn't know even what the problem was. But yet, I was already taking it. So I knew that their intercession got really close. I knew their heartfelt desire to want to help me came not only through their prayer and intercession, but through their voice of encouragement of saying what they had felt without knowing it. Because they didn't know I was taking it, and they thought it would be good if I did. And they just told me that it could have been anything, but not what they were saying that I needed to do. So that really helps, I believe, for us all to understand that when your child is hurting and you're praying for them, and say they're off to college or they're married and have their own family, and you know they're going through something because you can just feel it in the spirit. If you begin to pray for them, pray with intercession in your mind, intercession with your heart. You know, intercession by definition means to hear God for another. Most people seem to fail to pick that up when they're studying intercession and the prayer of intercession. But the prayer of intercession truly is a big part of what being prophecy is. Let's talk about today's word, December 7th, 2025, today. If I were to seek honor from men or seek honor from man, then I would have been able to fit in with all of them. However, because truth in God means more to me than the approval of man, I find myself on the outside looking in. Now, I think that says what I wanted to say. I can only tell if you were to respond and tell me what it meant. But what it means to me is that I can even spend my life trying to be like everybody else, to please everybody else, to fit into their groups and their clubs and their ideology, and even in some cases their religion, just to be a part of who they are. Or I can be who God wants me to be, as He has created me to be, and just watch what everybody else does and let them be who they are. And I take that back with even another quotation that is generally used: to live and let live. And that is essentially what you really should do. Not try to be like somebody else, like so many are. So many people want to be like a movie star or some rock musician or even someone who has the athletic ability to do great feats in the field where people give all the praise. And there's people who have actually conquered the ability to be able to win the trophies that give them a desire to do more, but that also gives other people the desire to be who they are and want to take selfies with them and all that, but that's so short lived. And when you're in it and it's over with and it's done, there's nothing left. There's nothing left except the photos, the film, and just the trophies in the case. And I feel like to myself that that's some of those things are good. But on the other hand, there's a lot of things that are more important to God. You are, in fact, are more important to God than anybody else could ever imagine you to be. Because the fact is, there's something being created in you each and every day that is meant to affect the life of someone else. And as it procures and begins to develop within your life, you'll find that it helped guide you in your path of the promise of God, finding your destiny as you were actually just seeking to help others through intercessory prayer and seeking God for direction for yourself. And these things we do because we want to get closer to God. This is the school of prophetic knowledge. And these prophetic teachings are to help you not just to be able to be a witness to someone or even tap into signs and wonders and maybe have miracles work in your life, because all of that is good too, because God gets honor out of it. And He says so. He wants to share the signs and wonders or miracles with His people as a sign unto them that I am with them. Look to them, follow them. And that is more important than any kind of film recitation or a movie or a book written about you, or maybe even a trophy in the case. Trophies to me are testimonials of how God used little old me. Well, I say little, I'm a pretty big guy, but my influence doesn't have to be all that much. I've said it many times. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know the one that does. Because in that, He can give me what I need to know in order to say what needs to be said, to break the ground, to be able to plant the seed of Jesus in their life that they may come to Him and give their life to Him. There's a great revival taking place in the world today, and it's all shaping up into something very new. And for most of my life, I've spent it trying to seek God to be a part of whatever His great next move was. And I'm blessed that I was part of the prophetic move of God. I'm blessed to have been ventured into that era of time. It's meant a lot to me. But at the same time, it saddens a little bit because I see the flame is beginning to fan out for most of the prophetic people, but yet the ability to be able to do what God's called you to do is still there. I'm not looking for the people to come by the hundreds to get a prophecy. This old dog just not hunting as well as used to. I mean, I can still find God. I can still find out what He wants to say. And I have 3 people out there right now that are waiting for me to get in touch with them so I can talk to them online like this and record their prophetic counseling so that we can find out what God's doing in their life. And I miss that so much. And really, I get more out of that than I do sitting down doing prophecies without talking to the person, seeing the person. I get so much out of it because I get to touch it. I get to feel it spiritually. I get to be in the intercessory mode in that time that we're talking screen to screen. As it is in this particular point in time, just bringing the sermon. It is difficult to preach to a people you can't see, because when you have a crowd in front of you, or even a small group of people, they draw out of you by the Spirit. You can feel them tugging on your soul and spirit for the knowledge that's based in you, what's been brewed within you, what God's called you to do. Now, I want to get into the mission now. The message today, I thought was going to be a little bit more challenging than it really is. And it might not sound like much. You know, we're talking about the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians chapter 5. And the fruits of the Spirit is the final teachings on the groupings of spiritual gifts, ascension gifts, and there's other gifts that we will talk about, but this is a particular grouping of words that dictate how you should act, how you should be, what is required of you as a Christian. The word today is faithfulness. Faithfulness, no less. It is, I guess you would say, it might be the least, but it's not the least important. It's just the least that required of you to do. And in faithfulness, we find that God gives us the ability to be able to be faithful in trusting Him in all things. But I do see people from time to time, as long as things are going good, they're faithful. But when things start getting a little bit tough, or it's a little bit difficult, or God doesn't seem to be moving fast enough for them, they become a little unfaithful. I've even had people so foolishly threaten God. If you don't take care of this thing this week, I'm gonna quit you and walk away. Well, that's not somebody that's got their lives sold out to Jesus. Faithful, no less. Be faithful, at least no less. Even when it's hard. I mean, when Job was going through what he was going through, he never gave in. He was always faithful to believe God would actually resurrect him out of the situation he was in. Lost his family, lost everything he owned, had boils all over him, scraping them off with pottery clay, broken pots. I think you kind of get the understanding of his situation. It was dire. But before it was all over with, God not only heard his cry, but blessed him with twice as much as what he had before. Maybe you're looking for a double portion. Well, first you might have to lose everything you have in order to get that double portion. Are you going to be faithful in that? Are you going to continue to stand with God? So many people have a loved one who maybe it's a child or maybe it's their spouse, and they lose their spouse and they die. And all of a sudden, the person all of a sudden has no loyalty to God whatsoever. They're not faithful at all. No faithfulness. They become nothing more than someone who thought they believed, but didn't believe because God didn't do what they wanted them to do. Well, I'm sorry. God is God because he is God, not because you said he was. And he's not going to get worried about you dropping out of the game. He's not going to care about if you're not going to follow him. It's probably bothers him to the extent that he thinks that, I hate to see what they're going to go through. But he doesn't. He's not going to lose his crown because of you deciding you're not going to follow him anymore. Find it an interesting thing. If you want to really know where somebody is with Christ, ask them to tell you their testimony. Just say, take a moment and just tell me how you came to Jesus. What was your experience? You'll find pretty easily whether they really are or they're not. And so many people just jump into it because they think, well, heck, I'll get on this bus just in case it's going to where I need to go. But I won't leave my other buses that I have sitting out there that I got my name locked in on the seat. It doesn't work that way. You have to give it your all because he gave his all on the cross of Calvary. And he's still giving his all. think about what God has to put up with every day, what Jesus is working with and teaching and inspiring and giving revelatory information. I heard something that was very inspiring this morning. I like to find places where there's testimonies. And I ran across a testimony that was given about what President Trump was going through on his flight across country back to D.C. from his travels. And he began to talk about how God was giving him I guess you would say, an epiphany. But the way he described it, and it wasn't his voice, it sounded like his voice. I mean, it's, how AI works. And it wasn't a video moving, even though it was a video log. And those things that were being said came directly from his thoughts. You could tell. I could see him actually writing this down because it sounded so much like him and the way he would depict things. But it changed him. And I don't know if you've noticed how much of a change has been in him in the last few years, but this first term was nothing like his second. And he has come to a place to where he knows his responsibility, but he also knows his inabilities. He knows his weakness, and he's gaining knowledge and understanding through hearing God that that's his only hope to make it all work again. And there's things working in our nation right now that are going to really blow people's socks off next year. We're going to see a turnaround in this nation like we've never seen before. Not only shall financial prosperity come in like a flood, but people will begin to find themselves in a better place all the way around. And we're just sitting right on the edge, just waiting. It's like sitting in a dragster and the motor's running. You can feel it running, and the pipes are sending out some pretty loud noises, but nothing's moving yet. But wait until they drop that light down to green and everybody hits the throttle. And here we go. It's going to be a real scene. And how many nations will crack their necks trying to get around to find out what in the world we're doing? Because it's going to happen so fast. People will just spend days, weeks, and even months trying to catch hold to find out why this is happening. I've even done something that not too many months ago, I said God would not help me with something that I wanted to help our people with. That when I was banking, that, I had a faithfulness in God to take care of me financially, even when I made some real big risk in banking and made some outlandish journalism in the banking journals about what we could do in the banking industry. And that was starting out branch banking, offshore banking, some of those things that I prescribed myself to lay down myself as I guess you might say, a choice if people took it and a flake if people didn't. I was going to be judged according to what I was saying in these journals. Now, these things were taken very seriously in some areas, and some were quiet, but yet those who were quiet are the ones that actually went out and did it and prospered from it. But as I learned this, I learned something else. If you don't do what God asks you to do in these financial investments, he will strip it away from you. And what he told me to do is if I'd give $75,000 to the church. Now, that was a lot of money now. But I just hauled around, yeah, Lord, if you'll show me how to do this, I'll do it. And I didn't think another thing about it, really, until everything started falling apart. And then I wanted to know what's going on here. And it took a while before I got my answer. But by the time I had my answer, everything was too late. Everything had cracked and crumbled so badly, it was at an end of no repair. So as I went forward with it, I realized this is the end. And ever since then, I just couldn't find myself except for just this. God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Just tell me. Just don't take your voice away from me. And I started from there, and it started moving in a totally different direction from banking into ministry, and from ministry even into prison. And in prison, that's where I learned most of everything I need to learn from the Holy Spirit direct. At the time, even though it was only a little over, was less than a year, but yet at the same time, I had the ability to be able to receive in a very calm place. As you might think, that's not a calm place, but it was for me. Even to the point to where, faithfulness is something that needs to be checked out every once in a while and see what people will do. And, prison is a tough place as it is, and if you wore a little pocket Bible in your shirt pocket, and some of these pretty rough guys who were doing life prison would see that Bible in your pocket, they would test you. Because the one thing they couldn't stand is somebody to act like they were a follower of Christ and just wear that as some kind of badge to keep anybody from messing with them. And they would challenge you. And I had a few challenge me. And when they saw that I was the real deal, they would support me. They would back me up. They would keep me from being in a bad way or being beat up. Not because I asked them to. It's just that they knew if you're really truly a servant of God, then they're gonna support you. But faithfulness can be tested in many different ways. I find also that there's a number of scriptures I put out today, but I'm not going to give them to you today. I'll make them available if you want them. I'll put them in the mailer that goes out after this one that has the video for today. The thing is that right now we're at a place where you need to lock in on who you're going to be with Christ, because it's going to change as it has changed for me. Because now I can buy into investments and they do amazing things. I can be receiving that unction of the Holy Spirit on a clue, a particular brand of product, and watch for that product to go onto the stock exchange, buy the stock, and see an increase. I bought stock like that here in the last 6 months. Not a lot, but it's but the return has been quite significant. I mean, if you put $1,000 into one thing and in 6 months it's $2,000, that's a good deal. That's what you call 100% return. And you still got your initial seed. And if you have them roll in your debt, you have them roll in your coupon clipper, basically. If you receive interest or an income off that stock, instead of them mailing it to you or putting it in your account, you just have them roll it over. A double indemnity kind of deal. Then you see really growth. But we haven't even had one of those, and we still are grossing more than what we're putting in. Now, I'm telling you this because you need to be knowledgeable in the area to a certain degree. And if you decide to get into it, don't get in too big, but get into a little bit. Pray about it. And don't just jump out there and do it because you prayed. Pray and wait until you're told what to do. And you'll be surprised what God's going to do for you. Faithfulness. If you're faithful to him, you can count on him being faithful to you. And that's the best thing to look forward to, because just being faithful to God is the minimum, no less. But you will find the best in trusting him. So be it. May you be blessed in his holy name. Thank you for your prayers. And I look forward to getting back with you people to do some prophetic counseling very soon. God bless you. And to all, a good day.